I just talked to Arceus, and as it would turn out, you're not going to go to Poke Heaven, and you have to believe that because Arceus said it, and you can't just not believe what Arceus says because that's Poke Sin. We know about your search history. You clear it very quickly, but Arceus is still quicker than that. And as it turns out, the leisure time activities you've been engaging in are not in accordance with Arceus's plan. Okay? So, you're not going to Poke Heaven. Heba deba. How did I deliver that straight-faced? Alright, so in case it wasn't evident, this video is going to be about pop culture paganism, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically you take elements of popular culture and incorporate them into your witchy pagan practice. The most obvious form that this takes is taking fictitious characters from your favorite media and sort of treating them as the gods and goddesses of your practice. And I know, if you've never heard of this, it probably sounds really delulu. Honestly, it probably is a little bit delulu. I mean, let's be honest, this is all just a little bit delulu, but there may well be precedent for this. I'm going to go over how pop culture paganism might work and whether or not there's any real validity to it. Now, there are practitioners who do this and see results, and if you are one of them, then please continue. Don't ever let anyone convince you your practice is, bad or wrong, but do have some self-awareness if you are dipping your toes into the realm of the absurd. The first explanation for this phenomena that I would like to go over is the idea of multiverse theory. Yes, many practitioners who engage in this sort of magic believe that there is a multiverse and that all fictitious media, or at least a good portion of it, is not made up by writers, but is instead channeled through them from these alternate realities where these things are actually happening. So, the stories of, Godzilla and Lord of the Rings and junk are, actually happening somewhere out in the multiverse. And personally, this is a theory that I would lend the least credence to. I really don't believe this theory. I think it's definitely possible for channelings to work their way into fictitious works, and I think to some extent it probably does happen, but I just don't think that there would be enough raw data there for a recognizable practice based on that alone. This whole ordeal gets especially dicey when the fictitious character in question shares a name and likely design and personality characteristics with an actual documented being from mythology or occult tradition. An example that comes immediately to mind of this is Tiamat and Bahamut from Dungeons & Dragons, with Tiamat being the goddess and ruler of the evil chromatic dragons, and Bahamut being the god and ruler of the good metallic dragons. Both of these divert quite heavily from the actual mythology that these characters originate from. In the context of his cultural origin, Bahamut isn't really even a dragon god. He's a massive, gigantic fish upon which the entire world rests. Now, I've heard people say that in this particular culture, a giant fish is what their version of a dragon was. I haven't personally seen the sources or data to back this up. I'm not going to speak one way or the other about it. Another one is Vivzy Pop's Hellaverse, Has-Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss. I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you, but Stolas of the actual Ars Goetia is not a sassy twink. Beelzebub is not a sexy, furry fox waifu. I'm sorry, he's just not. That's just not how any of this works. And the problem with pulling from sources like this is that they're always going to be heavily modified to be maximally entertaining and palatable for a modern audience, and they will also be heavily distorted by the artist's own creative lens. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's great to pull inspiration from wherever you can get it, and mythology and occult tradition are an absolute wellspring, but you have to approach fiction as what it is. It's fiction. It's to entertain us. As awesome as it would be if he was, I'm afraid that Amdusius is not a lesbian dommy mommy. If you know what piece of media that particular depiction is from, you're one of the real ones. I think this particular angle is very escapist for the most part. You know, we all wish our favorite characters were real. Like, how cool would it be to hang out with, like, Optimus Prime and Darth Vader and whoever else you're into. But the thing is, they're just not. Fiction is fiction. The next explanation for this that I think holds a lot more water is other pre-existing entities who are not these fictitious characters can adopt these fictitious characters as masks and sort of roleplay as them for you. I think that this is a much more sane way to approach pop culture paganism. In fact, if you do this on purpose and intentionally, it can actually be a great deal of fun. In order to practice my visualization and journey work capabilities and also connect more closely with my spirit guide companions, we have sometimes gone on Pokemon themed little visualization adventures where we'll each pretend to be a Pokemon, and then we'll use my subconscious as the engine to generate Pokemon Mystery Dungeon themed set locations and scenarios. And it's a great deal of fun, but like, it's all play pretend. At no point in any of this are we convincing ourselves that Pokemon is real. I also, on the subject of Pokemon, I had an interesting dream one night that I had a Miraidon as a spirit companion on like a pre-bound vessel from Satan and Sons. And if you don't know what Satan and Sons is, they are a demonology and theistic Satanism approached occult community. They have a Discord server and a forum. They're really cool place to share experiences, get information, and just have fun with demons. In this dream, I had this Miraidon companion, and it like produced this sort of electrical field around me, and it was cool and interesting. And I actually, as a result of that, I ended up getting this thing just for funsies. You know, a fun little reminder of the memory. Last explanation for this phenomena that I would like to go over is the concept of egregores and thought forms. And if you don't know what these types of beings are, a thought form is basically an entity that you create in your own mind and can interact with mentally. Sometimes you can like talk to them, play games with them. These are a great deal of fun. When they get to a point where they become both self-sustaining and sentient, they become tulpas. And if multiple people practice with a thought form and feed energy into it, then it gains influence beyond just the person who created it, and at that point it becomes an egregore. An egregore is an artificially created spiritual being that is fueled by the belief and energy of a group of people. And you know, I'm going to be honest, I think this is probably where a lot of popular gods and deities come from, and including a particular someone that I should not have to even name, considering how much of my aesthetic and image is specifically geared toward blaspheming against them, but sacred blasphemy, y'all. It's great. And so, I think it's obvious where this is going. You can absolutely create thought forms of fictitious characters from your favorite media. This can be a great deal of fun, and if you get multiple people to participate with you, or if multiple people just do this with the same character, they can become egregores. And I don't know if you remember this from a number of years back, the Pinkie Pie Tulpa. This was a rather unsettling example of a thought form style entity. I might actually go see if I can find the original story and read it to you guys, because it's really funny. Okay, so as it would turn out, Pinkie Pie Tulpa actually is a much longer story that goes a lot deeper than I remember it going, but I'll read the first part of it. Creating Pinkie Pie Tulpa. Do it before going to bed every night. Ignore warnings about doing exactly that, because it can take ideas from your dreams. 60 hours in, I've started hearing and seeing her. Her face is deformed as fudge and frightening, and I can't change it. She just keeps yelling for no fudging reason, mostly when someone else is talking to me. Can't hear shirt when she does. My face when. 60 hours in, I've started hearing and seeing her, and Annan was never heard from again. It's an example of thought form entities gone horribly wrong. I know, it's not funny, it's traumatic. It can be traumatic and funny. That's the thing that you have to understand, okay? It can be both. In this case, the fictitious character is a figment of your own subconscious. You know that it's a figment of your own subconscious, and you choose to work with it in that way. And I think this can actually be the most powerful way of working with it, because, when we think of witchcraft and magic, a lot of times we think of, big manifestations, throwing curses, and, bending the world around us to our will, but I think by far, hands down, the most powerful magic is always directed at creating emotional, psychological, and mental shifts within the practitioner's own psyche. And gods, angels, dragons, the fae, external beings in general, as much as we love them and think that they're awesome and amazing and they make life so magic and fun and entertaining, they're not necessary to pull this off. You can do this using only your own internal system. And I think that's incredibly powerful, When it comes right down to it, it kind of is a case of your own body and your own mind are all you really need. And if these fictional characters can help you in that, then that's wonderful. If you want to visualize Pinkie Pie gassing you up and telling you how amazing and cool and worth partying and celebrating over you are, then that's great. If you have a lot of self-depreciating thoughts and you're like, I'm worthless, I should just go jump in the toilet, and you want to have Optimus Prime come in and say, all sentient life is worth protecting, all sentient life deserves freedom, including you, then that's great. I think that would be awesome, in fact. I'm aware this video has been a lot of criticism, and it may seem as though I am against pop culture paganism, but quite the contrary is actually the case. In fact, I weave elements of it into my own practice. I don't straight up worship any fictitious characters, because I do think that that's stepping a little too deep into delusional territory. But, a lot of the archetypes we work with are actually quite universal, and if a mask of a pop culture character helps you with that, then I think that's great. Before I made my shrine to Nidhogg, and he kind of took up this role within my personal practice, I actually did work with the archetype of death through the Mask of Kindred from League of Legends for a little while. I also have some Yu-Gi-Oh cards that I use as visual representations of entities. Like, I have this number 17 Leviathan Dragon card, Yu-Gi-Oh card, that I keep with my shrine of the primordial chaos serpents. And I know this isn't actually an illustration of Leviathan, the great biblical sea serpent, obviously, but it has some of that energy, especially since it's an Exceed card and it has that cool black background. I also, on my unicorn shrine, I have this Dark Lord Amdusk. I love Lord Amdusius. He is one of my favorite spirits to work with, and unfortunately, good, darker depictions of unicorns are kind of hard to come by, and this just does a really good job of the trick. And I also have this, it's Japanese, so I can't really read it, but this Mechanical Dawn Yu-Gi-Oh card, because it reminds me of my co-magician dragon being a multi-headed golden machine dragon. Perhaps the most fun way to incorporate pop culture into your practice is to divine with trading cards. A lot of people do Pokemon card divination, which I think is super cool, but I've taken it a step further and have this monster of a deck that's made up of a mix of Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, and just even My Little Pony, and just whatever random trading cards I could find stuffed together into it. I'll flip through it a little bit for you. Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully that gives you some idea of the advanced state of decay that my brain is in. Yeah, I feel like a lot of this video has kind of just been me presenting a whole lot of brain rot and then arguing back and forth with myself over whether or not I think that this brain rot is good and real and valid. So please, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like and subscribe, and maybe even leave me a comment. And especially if you disliked this video, then definitely leave me a comment explaining why I'm wrong and should never make a video again. I think that pop culture paganism is fun. I think it absolutely has its places. I think you need to be careful with it, as I think it can quickly spiral into total Delulu territory, but if you kind of keep it on the rails and you're aware of what you're doing, I think it can be a very fun and healthy part of a practitioner's journey. Woo!